Okay, well, it is 55 after the hour. We're going to get this session going, but we can maybe have a slow introduction of this concurrent session while we let people trickle in from the main stage. I thought this morning was really good. I hope everybody was here for yesterday as well. The Zero Waste Business Day was pretty good as well. I know that I learned a lot and I've enjoyed everything so far. So this is our first concurrent session. So there are two other sessions going on right now, but this concurrent session is called A Very Personal Choice, Zero Waste Lifestyle. I imagine people will continue to join for the next few minutes. So we're just going to slowly introduce our speakers and get going. This session is still going to go for about an hour. So we're just going to cut into our break for a little bit. And these concurrent sessions, we can be a little bit more casual here. So when we get to the Q&A at the very end, you can put your questions in chat throughout the presentation. So feel free to use the chat. But at the end, if you have a question you haven't already put in chat, you can put it in chat at that point. And you can also raise your hand. And we can attempt to unmute you if you would like to do that. But that's the Q&A, and that will happen at the very end. So again, I'm going to start off this concurrent session called A Very Personal Choice, Zero Waste Lifestyle. We have four great speakers here today for you. I'm Amanda Waddell. I'm the moderator for this session. I'm also one of the conference organizers, one of the project managers at Zero Waste USA. I live in Gainesville, Florida, and I'm the co-chair of Zero Waste Gainesville here, and I do advocacy work and lifestyle work here in Gainesville. And part of the work with Zero Waste Gainesville, I also work with our city and county staff and elected officials to get zero waste going locally on the community level. I'm also the director of Zero Waste at the Repurpose Project, so we're a creative reuse center in Gainesville. But as far as this panel, we're going to learn about how resources to support low waste celebrations, strategies to reduce wasted food, and sustainable approaches to the necessities of food, clothing, housing, and transportation. This is your opportunity to rethink the day-to-day through a zero waste lens. So I'm going to introduce our four speakers right now. First, we have Adoma Otto. Adoma is an associate at the Center for Biological Diversity, where she supports campaigns centered around addressing human impacts on the environment. Adoma's work focuses on waste prevention, advocacy for sexual and reproductive health and rights, and the systemic injustices associated with unequal environmental burdens and unequal access to health services. She holds a bachelor's degree in environmental studies and global health from Yale University. She is published in the EcoWatch and Journal of Population and Sustainability. Sarah is our next speaker is Sarah Bailey. Sarah is the Population and Sustainability Organizer with the Center for Biological Diversity. She leads outreach efforts to help people understand how the pressures of our growing human population and high levels of consumption hurt wildlife and habitat. She manages the wildlife-friendly wedding guide and So Kind registry. Sarah holds a bachelor's in wildlife conservation from the University of Delaware, a master's in biology from Villanova University, a master's of public administration from the University of Arizona. Our next speaker is Allison Mountford. Allison is a chef, an entrepreneur. Allison teaches busy families how to reduce household food waste while managing their home kitchens through an online meal planning web app, digital courses, and virtual presentations. She's a recurring chef on her local morning show in Providence, Rhode Island, has cooked for the Vice President of the United States, and has appeared in numerous podcasts and articles. Allison lives in Rhode Island with her partner and two kids who challenge her cooking often. Liz Murphy is our last speaker today. Liz is the chef and co-founder of Santasha Nutrition and has a passion for plant-based cuisine, regenerative agriculture, and fighting food waste. Santasha provides zero waste cooking classes, farm to table experiences, and community events that support local farms, sustainable cooking, and composting. In 2021, Liz co-founded Sustainability is Sexy, a nonprofit organization focused on providing education and resources for businesses in the community. Through zero waste events, Sustainability is Sexy, the podcast, and local projects, Sustainability is Sexy is creating space for brands and individuals to lower their impacts on climate change. So right now, I'm going to hand it over to Adoma to get us started.
All right, thank you so much, Amanda. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I might be showing the wrong thing. Let's try that again. Hopefully this is the right one. Huge. Are we seeing the slide?
It looks good, yes.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Adoma Ado. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an associate with the Center for Biological Diversity. For those of you who are unable to see me today, I'm a Black woman with shoulder-length black hair and a cream turtleneck with some funky earrings on. And I'm currently on stolen Quinnipiac land in southern Connecticut. Ooh. There we go. First, a quick introduction about the center. We are a national nonprofit organization that works through a combination of science, the law, activism, and creative media to protect wildlife and the wild places they need to thrive. On the screen, you're seeing a variety of our different programs, and I'm here to discuss a project that my team has worked on at the center, focused on educational and advocacy campaigns that really engage the general public, highlighting the ways in which other big green nonprofits like ourselves can engage with a variety of communities on the topic of waste production behaviors. Okay, so the idea for this project really came out of a design thinking ideation session that my colleague conducted on the topic of waste reduction challenges, in which people were able to brainstorm problems and solutions. Several of the participants really mentioned structural issues as a key challenge, and other problems or other ideas that the group really aggregated around that theme. So participants expressed concerns about waste reduction behaviors and the feasibility of current challenges. Some of the terms associated with lifestyles of waste reduction were perceived as somewhat perfectionist, costly, or unattainable, really reflecting kind of unrealistic goals for waste reduction, and really referenced larger economic structures that appeared to prevent individual action. And this prompted us to do a little bit more digging into the language and communication strategies associated with waste reduction. Oh, there we go. Okay, recognizing the role that both behavior change and structural change play in the efforts to reduce waste, the center really wanted to look at this as a both and situation. Not only do we need systems level changes, but also at the individual level, we still need to instill societal norms that nourish community, sustainability, and health with a diverse and equitable lens versus our current pattern of overconsumption. So as you can see on the slide, the results from a 2019 survey that we conducted reveal that 75% of Americans believe that the average American overconsumes. I do want to acknowledge here that when talking about consuming less, it's not always an equitable request. The center talks about this often in relation to conscious consumption, but that only works if there's corporate transparency. So really going back to that going back to that earlier point about both and situation, where we need both individual action and corporate transparency. Some people do need to consume less. Some people need to consume differently. And some folks, even the United States, need to consume more, even if that's in relation to food, clothing, shelter, and even what brings people joy. Okay. So these concerns of the individual limitations and policy limitations led us to a wider message testing survey to determine the general public's motivations, knowledge, and perceptions of waste production behaviors. In 2021, we conducted a series of nationwide surveys with an oversample in the Midwest in partnership with an external local government organization. And this survey really included 2 paid samples carried out through Amazon Mechanical Turk, MTurk, as well as 2 convenient samples and it featured around 29 questions on messaging related to waste, policy related to waste, and obviously the motivations to reduce waste. And this survey really served as the first step in a larger process of redefining cultural and social norms surrounding waste reduction behaviors and linear economy. And we're hoping that it will eventually lead to campaigns that will promote behavior and lifestyle changes of waste reduction. In this presentation, I'm going to do a kind of high-level overview and really focus on 3 of the main themes we observed in the data and connect that to a variety of our other campaigns relating to waste reduction around the holidays in particular. Oh no. Okay, there we go. I'm getting the hang of this. So the first theme that was really present in the survey came out of 2 questions in particular. The first one being a message testing question and a communications question. We were really focusing on trying to figure out which words should be used to talk about generating and disposing of less waste. Waste reduction and waste prevention here were really considered as top choices by both the National Convenience Sample and the paid MTurk sample. And this question is really emblematic of a larger trend of the data in which respondents favored terms that they perceived as familiar and easily understood. However, some respondents did find that words such as prevention were more accurate in terms of the larger goal of specificity, addressing a problem before it starts. However, as you can see on the slide, the vast majority of people sort of were in agreement that waste reduction was perceived as a more commonly understood and popular term. Continuing on the theme of favoring familiarity and approachability, we asked which phrase best describes waste reduction, reducing waste overall as a lifestyle. And we were able to see that people really favor terms like sustainable living and conscious consumption. And respondents also offer terms that are frequently thrown around in pop culture as well, including zero waste, eco living, and low waste living. We also chose to ask, why did you choose that answer, sort of to understand people's perspectives and where they were coming from in their responses. And when respondents were asked that question, they often suggested that terms such as sustainable living were understandable and intuitive. Conscious consumption was really favored for its understandability, clarity, and familiarity. And some respondents did express concerns about buzzwords and some of the connotations associated with lifestyles of zero waste, of low waste, specifically as we saw in the design ideation session, perceptions of exclusivity and elitism. And there was a clear need to express or frame these lifestyle changes as inclusive and not elitist. In addition to asking about participants' motivations or participants' perceptions, of the terms they used, we also wanted to learn a little bit more about the motivations and what participants really saw as key in our discussions of waste reduction. And we found that over 50% of respondents in both samples indicated that that protecting nature or reducing their carbon footprint really motivates them to reduce waste, indicating that there were pretty high levels of environmental motivations across the board, both in the paid convenience sample and in the general public. However, as you can sort of see on the slide, the general public, which was the MTurk sample, was definitely more likely to be motivated by financial reasons to save money or to simplify or organize their lives. The third theme that was in the cumulative results was sort of this frustration with single-use packaging. And it really came across in how respondents had written in their own responses and the responses that they were choosing. Evident in the question here, which read, which action is the most important to you to limit your waste? Respondents most readily affiliated waste reduction with reuse and the elimination of plastic. Over 75% of respondents in each of the samples, like both the paid sample and the convenience sample, believed that reducing one's consumption of unneeded items or single-use items were effective at eliminating waste. For this question, there were also some additional qualitative responses that described upstream and policy solutions that respondents really favored. For example, encouraging supermarkets and manufacturers to really redefine how they package their goods, using less packaging, when selling products, as well as a real focus on extended producer responsibility and additional corporate responsibility. And of course, there was a lot of frustration with food packaging in particular, and sort of the downstream burden on the consumer. The sort of continuing on that theme, question 8, which is here on the slide, presented respondents with 4 different images of products and experiences that represented waste prevention behaviors, including reusable and rechargeable products, secondhand goods, and bulk purchasing. And as you can sort of see on the slide, respondents really favored images associated with reuse, the reusable water bottle, but there seemed to be a little bit of additional research that would be necessary to understand perceptions of rechargeable versus larger transformations of grocery stores, as we can see with the store bulk containers. We were able to identify some key recommendations based on the findings, primarily focusing on messaging that highlights accessibility and understandability while communicating larger goals, as well as really recognizing, really there being a widespread recognition of the shortcomings of manufacturers relating to single use. Overall, we really noted that a fundamental component of our approach is the and/or approach, and it was really recognized by both us and the participants that individual action alone is not the individual action alone is just one part of the need for transformation. While this project really focused on identifying the language that appealed most to the consumers about individual changes, we also believe that there needs to be a radical reimagining of our linear and unjust economy, which would be necessary to address the burdens of solid waste at large on the consumer. And so this, in this case, could involve more upstream actions from manufacturers, but also a variety of individual changes in behaviors, which encouraged us to do additional research into where people would be most adept to looking at these changes. Calling for individual and systemic transformations is undoubtedly a huge task, and we recognize that these changes won't happen overnight, and we really wanted to hone in on areas where people report a real need for transformation in terms of how we consume and the cultures around consumption, most notably around the winter holidays. So thanks to the generosity of some local governments throughout the country, we're able to aggregate trash, recycling, and yard waste data and found that Americans generate around 23% more waste in December, equivalent to around 5.8 million tons of waste. So huge amounts of waste generated in the winter holidays alone. And this really helped or is framed or connects well with our Simplify the Holidays campaign, which is really centered around transforming the way we go about our holiday celebrations. So what can we do about it? We really want to reimagine the holidays as with wildlife-friendly gifts and traditions that really increase connection, save money, and help the environment, while simultaneously creating meaning in new traditions. Simplifying holiday traditions offers many opportunities to connect with family and your local community, and the Simplify the Holidays website, which my colleague Sarah will present a little bit more on in the next presentation, is a great way to get started with numerous different ways you, your family, and your friends can reinvent traditions to make them more impactful for you and less so on the environment. So before I hand it over to Sarah, I did just want to give a little bit of a brief discussion of what the Simplify the Holidays website is. It'll provide you with various tools, resources, and tips to create low waste holiday traditions in your home and provide you with information you can share with others, be that community members, students, employees, or coalition partners, to really redefine holiday traditions. It's also equipped with really useful tips and tricks to get the conversation going. And I'm really excited to see Sarah's presentation. As you can see on this slide, I provided the link at the top, but there's also a QR code, and you can use your phone to scan the QR code and it'll take you directly to the website. And yes, I'm going to hand it over to Sarah, who's going to go a little bit more in depth into the website. But thank you so much. And over to you, Sarah. Oh, there's my thank you.
Thanks, Doma. All right. Hi, everyone. So like Adoma said, I'm going to be talking about sharing some resources to support low waste celebrations. My name is Sarah Bailey. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Population and Sustainability Organizer at the Center for Biological Diversity. For those who can't see me, I am a white woman with brown hair of average height, wearing a black shirt, talking to you from my home office. And I am on Wenhodran and Haudenosaunee land in Western New York. So obviously with the stat Joma shared about waste around the holidays, there's a lot that goes into that between food, decorations, and obviously a big part specifically of winter holidays compared to other holidays is gift giving. So that's going to be the focus of my presentation. So I also know some of our other panelists are going to be discussing food later. So with gifts, we know that 3 in 5 Americans admit to lying about liking a gift they've received. And nearly a third of people who accepted a gift they don't like threw it in the trash. And many gifts even returned to the store end up in a landfill. So this whole, the dynamic of gift giving and not asking people or not knowing what to get for people sometimes results in quite a bit of waste. So we want to go over some ways to reduce that. There's a few different ways to go about this to kind of shift our gift gifting culture. One thing that we've seen shared for kids is to go with one thing they need, or one thing they want, one thing they need, one thing to wear, and one thing to read. So you're giving things that are, have utility to them, and along with things that they want. And then an alternative to gift exchange, instead of, giving one for every member of the family, is to host a white elephant party or a secret gift exchange. It's a little more one-on-one to kind of overall reduce that quantity. And then we also, within the Simplify the Holidays website that Adoma was explaining, we have lots of resources across many holidays, with many specifically geared towards winter holidays. And we even have kind of talking points and guides for kind of how to have these conversations. We know gift giving can kind of be like very much rooted in tradition, and friends and family might have a hard time shifting from that. But we kind of have some good kind of conversation starting points to have that. So for example, we have this year, I really want to make sure that I'm giving you gifts you actually want. I don't want to add clutter to your lives. And I heard about this online service called So Kind that lets families make unique, memorable holiday wish lists. So here's a sample holiday wish list. Wouldn't it be fun for our families to create something like this year? Which then leads into the resource I'm going to share with you is So Kind. So this is an alternative gift registry and wish list platform, and it encourages, like its little motto says, more fun and less stuff. It encourages the giving of non-material gift items. So how it works, if you've used any other registry or wish list platform, it's relatively similar in that you create an account, you create a registry. It's for all kinds of celebrations: weddings, baby showers, graduation, housewarming, and the holidays. So you go in, you create your account and your registry, and then you can add gifts. And there is so much room for creativity here. So this is just a screen grab of what it looks like and the information you usually input with this. You start with title of your gift, a description. If there's a website to access it, that can be included. And then we have the types of gifts. So there's secondhand, handmade, time, experience, Skillshare, charity, gift cards, and day of event help, which falls a little more in the wedding category. So you can put those in, you can put in quantities that are needed, or if you're going for a fund, you can put in, an amount of money needed for that. And then there's all sorts of nice little pictures to customize. You can upload your own pictures if you want. So you can really kind of do as much or as little with you want. The sky's the limit with how creative you want to be. So this is an example from when I use this for my wedding registry. My partner and I had lived together for years. There was not many physical things we needed. So we asked for things like a date night, a national park pass. We were moving at the time, so moving fund, and my personal favorite, a honeymoon dog sitter. So our dog was not going to be joining us on our trip. So this gift could have gone one of 2 ways. We had it here as a gift card and fund, but someone could have also offered to dog sit for us and, offer us a gift of service. So the gifts can be really versatile. And you can come up with, go off your hobbies, your interests, any of that to ask for. And then We did recently revamp SoKind. It got some nice updates. So this is relatively the same thing, but there's some fun borders and customizations you can add now to make it nice and pretty. And then a really unique feature to SoKind is this ability to make give lists. So this is sort of another resource to help you shift the gift giving culture amongst your loved ones. So your wish list is typically what you are asking for. This is a great way to show what you can offer others. So we have all kinds of sample wish lists for all different occasions on SoKind. So this is a screen grab of a sample holiday family give list. So some of the examples on here are dog sitting. It says, we are not ready to own a dog of our own, but we would happily do some practice runs with yours. So if you choose this gift, we'll be in touch with you to figure out which dates works best. There's also camping buddies. We're offering to go camp with folks or donating to your favorite charity. So if you want to, have both ways going of gift giving, you can create your own list of things. Maybe you are a skilled cook and can help your family with meal prep. Maybe you're really good at organizing, can help your friends organize their basement and get that straightened out. It may be things people don't think to ask for, but you are able to offer. And then just as anyone else would go on a registry to click give this gift, they can click here to receive the gift. And I should say there's useful aspects to certain types of gifts. You can connect the charity and gift cards to PayPal. The experience and Skillshare connect to a calendar. So if there's specific days you need help, you can categorize that so people can select the days they're available to help. It's a pretty streamlined platform in that way. And then with the other updates we completed this year, we have a few fun new aspects. It's now mobile friendly. So you can do this on the go, as if you're doing any traveling around the holidays, or an idea pops into your head when you're not at your desktop computer. You can add that there. We also have nifty gift guides. We realize alternative gift giving may be a new concept to folks, so we have lots of inspiration boards on Pinterest for that. And then we also have explainer videos to walk you through all the different steps of using SoKind, from creating a registry to adding gifts, and then how to give gifts on it as well. So yeah, like just a little screenshot of how it looks on your phone. You can work on your list anywhere and anytime. And then the gift guides are organized by event. So when you go to SoKind, you can see it. We've got wedding, baby, birthday, and holiday. So you'd click on gift ideas for any of those categories. And then it would be broken down into the different gift types. So we've got gift cards, secondhand, handmade, charity, experience, and time and skill. And then because this is a panel about personal choices, I'm going to share a little story about my personal gift of an experience. A few years ago, for Christmas, me and my sister and I both live out of town, so we always try to do stuff together as a family when we're all home together in the holidays. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. My dad's a big Eagles fan. So first I looked into tickets to a game, and those were way out of my price range. So as I was bopping around their website, I found they offer stadium tours. And at the time, they were only like $5 a person. So I was able to get tickets for the whole family. And we went on this really great tour. It's like 2 hours. You get to go in the locker room and on the field and in the press box. Like, it was a pretty fun time. And so we've got pictures in the top left is me, my dad, and my sister in the locker room. And then the pictures to the right are my personal favorite of the tour. We were told to not step on the logo on the floor of the locker room. And my mom spaced out and stepped on it and got in trouble. And the punishment was to sing the Eagles fight song with this other woman who also stepped on the logo in front of the whole tour. And that was a really funny memory for me. My mom was not happy, but I got a kick out of it. So it was a really fun, memorable time. So I always suggest this as a potential option for the sports fan in your life. Tickets are also a great experience, but if you need a budget-friendly option, stadium tours are pretty cool. And it's a better option than, jerseys where players get traded, the jerseys that aren't relevant anymore. So it's, a low-waste gift in that regard. And then you can find our, on our YouTube channel, Choose Wild, we have a playlist of our explainer videos to walk you through this process. So that's where you can find those. And then to shift a little bit on other types of celebrations, we also have a resource in our Wildlife Friendly Wedding Guide, and you can find that at wildlifefriendlyweddings.com. Or sorry, .org. So unfortunately, for all the fun that weddings are, they are a huge source of waste and CO2 emissions, to the tune of about 400 pounds of garbage and over 60 tons of carbon dioxide per wedding. And that's tricky because while for each person who's getting married, it's their one special day, there are like over 2 million special days a year in this country. So it's really an industry that needs to shift towards offering more low waste options for couples. And I think typically people, weddings are often viewed as expensive, but weddings can be sustainable, budget friendly, and logistically savvy. And what people also don't think about is everyone wants to personalize their special day. It's a great way if, zero waste and low waste values are part of your life and you want to share it that way, that's a great way to consider doing that for your wedding. And then again, back to personal, just showing some examples for my own wildlife friendly wedding. My husband and I got married at an aquarium, which was a fun and at least for our area, a relatively inexpensive venue where I didn't need to worry about any additional decorations because I had a shark tank behind me. I bought my dress used, so I saved on the raw materials for that. My bridesmaids, I just told them a color and told them to get a dress they'd want to wear again. So we weren't worried about the waste of dresses that aren't going to get worn again. I opted out of the traditional flower bouquets and we did little boutonnieres pinned on clutches that again could be used again. And I made little seed bombs as a favor. So you could go for no favors and not have any waste. But I went with some native seeds for coneflowers that could be helpful for pollinators if they were planted. So some favors can be put to good use. Things like consumables, cookies, and snacks people can grab and go are also a great option for this. So just to share some of the feasible things, and again, these were all affordable options. They made planning easier. So overall, sustainable weddings don't have to be complicated or expensive. And these are some of the resources. I was not as cool as Doma to make QR codes, so I will put these in the chat once I am done sharing. And I believe that's all I have.
Thanks, Sarah. That was fantastic. I enjoyed your wedding very much. That is beautiful photos. Hi, everybody. My name is Allison Mountford. For those of you who can't see me, I have short brown hair and a purple shirt, and I am speaking to you from my home office, which is on Wampanoag land in eastern coastal Rhode Island. I am a chef, first and foremost. That is how I have spent the better part of the last 2 decades. And around 2017, I realized I wanted to do more than just make nice food for people who could afford it. What I found with catering gigs and even personal chefing, where I would make relatively expensive food just because of how much labor was involved in private homes, is that often people, they think they need more food than they can actually eat because there's a component of worrying about running out. So we would cater these big events and make tons of food that then just ended up in the trash can. And though there are plenty of food rescue services as well, they're not always available. They can't always take all the food. So even though we did utilize those as well as much as we could, food still went to waste. So in reinventing around 2017, I decided I wanted to help people reduce their household food waste. So I have this web app called Ends and Stems, and it is aimed at helping busy families reduce their household food waste, and importantly, also reduce the stress around feeding their families. Recently this year, I launched a series of online courses and YouTube videos as well. And I'd love for you to find more information on my TikTok page, where we have lots of fun, or my Instagram page, which are linked at the bottom. Also going to be stealing Adoma's idea of putting in a QR code. That's very smart. Anyway, so this was the graph, or a similar version of the graph, that made me realize I knew something special and could really add to this conversation. We talk a lot about food waste, and I think the average person thinks restaurants or grocery stores waste a lot of food because we hear a lot about that. But in fact, More food is wasted in our own homes than at any other point. And what's interesting is that under consumer-facing businesses here, they get credit for about 28% of the total food waste, but a lot of that is in restaurants, and a lot of that is actually what you get on your plate in a restaurant. So it is still on you as a consumer and not the chefs in the restaurant, a certain percentage of that anyway. So having worked in thousands and thousands of homes and talked to so many people about managing their food at home, I realized I could help them solve this problem. And now I have never met somebody who tells me they think buying food at the grocery store and then wasting it is fun or something they want to do more of. So for that reason, I love teaching people to reduce their food waste because there's truly no downside to it. Whatever reason you are coming at not wanting to waste food, I think we are, as a species, not so far from realizing that getting food on our tables and in our homes is extremely expensive and time consuming. And not just financially, but we are not so removed from it that we think it's fun to waste food. So as I've talked to all these people about why they waste food, the reasons that rise to the top are that they don't have time to prioritize wasting less. And many people do not feel that they have the skills in their food management systems to reduce food waste. And life is just getting busier and harder and busier and harder. That's not pessimistic necessarily, but we don't have time to seek out these solutions. So this is, I'm going to go through very quickly a presentation that I am often hired to do. I've taught this to preschools. I've taught this to state agencies, individual groups. I've taught this to many, many, many corporate groups. But this is my 10-step process for better meal planning. I think we hear about meal planning and people think that this is a very type A person who is writing down every single thing that their family is going to eat, but it actually isn't. It's just a system of figuring out what food you need to buy to bring into your home and which days you will eat it. And if you can meal plan easily and in a way that fits in with your life, you can actually both reduce stress on a busy weeknight and you can reduce food waste. And the easiest way overall to waste less food is to bring less of it into your house. The average household tends to waste between 30 and 40% of food, depending on where you're looking at your statistics. And that is an enormous amount of food we throw away. But it's rarely like you buy a whole chicken and then just throw it away. It's sort of a slow leak that happens with leftovers and food that's spoiled or things that you didn't get to. So buying less starts, it makes it easier to waste less, but you can't buy less if you don't know what you're going to eat, because if you have the money to afford to buy another cucumber or just throw on an extra bag of chips, we tend to do that out of thinking that that will make our life easier down the road. So in my steps, the first 3 are actually the key to reducing food waste, and I've rarely seen these 3 show up on any other methods of how to reduce food waste. And then steps 4, 5, 6, and 7 are key to saving time and stress. And I am passionate about the fact that if we can also make dinner time and family meal times or individual meal times less stressful and time consuming for people, then we will also win their hearts and help them reduce food waste. And then shop, cook, and eat is what most people think meal planning is. So I'll go through these pretty quickly, but step 1, check your fridge. Before you decide what you're having for dinner next week, look in your fridge. What do you have that's going bad? Can you isolate 1 or 2 things? And this could also be your pantry and your freezer. Can you isolate 1 or 2 things, maybe 4 things that you can use in next week's meal plan? Number 2, very, very important. When you're writing a meal plan, this is not the time to be aspirational. This is not the time to say, I've always wanted to make pasta from scratch. This is not the time to say, we need a 3-course meal, or I wish my family ate more salads. You need to check your calendar and see which days are the busiest. Which days are people going in all directions? When am I having guests over? Will I actually have enough time to prepare a meal from scratch? Or will next Wednesday be the night to have takeout or something that's already ready to go from my freezer? Tie your meal plan to your calendar. Step 3, I got into food because I love cooking. I love feeding people. I like tasting new foods and trying new recipes. So check your cravings. Don't make a meal plan filled with salad. I pick on salad because actually it turns out when I go through this process, I don't really love salad as a meal. So don't make a meal plan filled with things that you aren't going to want to eat when next week rolls around. If you were spying chicken enchiladas last week, put that on your meal plan and you'll be excited when it rolls around next week. Step 4 is to jot down ideas. This is something I encourage people to do consistently. I always call it the Jeopardy effect. I think it has an actual scientific name. But when somebody points at you and says, hey, Adoma, what should we have for dinner next week? You kind of freeze up and all of a sudden you can't think of a single thing. But if you're writing down ideas throughout the week and have, maybe a shared app with other family members who can write down ideas, things will come to you naturally as you're walking or driving or as you go to a restaurant. And it's much easier to make decisions from a list of ideas than it is when you're put on the spot. So keep an ongoing list. I like to keep mine on a spreadsheet, but you can do whatever works for you. Step 5, we begin meal planning. You want to commit to the recipes or the meals you will choose next week. And in my meal planning here, takeout counts, dining out counts, and eating leftovers count. All of those things should go on your calendar. So it's not just recipes, but what will you eat each night? Put that on your calendar. Now, step 6, you've gone through this whole process. Don't do the work twice. This reduces your stress and your overall workload and your mental load. You've chosen recipes. You've decided on a restaurant where you'll get takeout. Save those resources together in a spot so that when next Wednesday rolls around and you need to actually cook those chicken enchiladas, you've saved the recipe that you pulled from your cookbook or you found online. Put them all in the same place so you don't need to hunt them down a second time. Now, step 7, you take the entirety of what you will be cooking next week and you compile a grocery list. Now, very importantly, to reduce food waste, take that list physically back into your kitchen and check what's on your list with what you have in your pantry. When I had a restaurant, this was the number one thing that my chefs did not want to do, but this contributes to so much waste because we have so many things going in our mind. You cannot possibly keep an accurate list of what is in your house in your head. So if you are making your grocery list at work or outside of your house, you will definitely purchase more food than you actually need. You need to take the list into your kitchen and cut off the things that you don't need, or even make substitutions if you can. And then we round it out with shop, cook, and eat. So I'll give you that rundown again. But here are my 10 easy steps to meal planning. I recommend going through this process typically a day or two at most before you go to the grocery store next time. You want to be pretty close to when you'll shop to check your inventory and make sure you don't buy too much. When you get really good at this, you can do this for 14 days at a time. You can do this for 2 or 3 days at the time. If you shop more frequently at smaller stores or you don't go in your big car to haul things home. So you can do this as many times. I always say a week, but I don't literally mean a week. You can find ways that fits in your family's life. And again, the most important point that I reiterate is if you want to try new types of cooking or if you want to, have new food habits at home, don't be aspirational on your meal plans. The number one reason I see people meal plan and then quit their meal plans is because they were not in tune with what their life actually looks like while they were making these decisions. And then you bring home food that you will waste. But on that note, you say, Allison, I've had a day. I made this meal plan and I cannot do it. I cannot make chicken soup tonight, even though I have all the ingredients sitting here to do it. So the 3 reasons that I hear people make a meal plan and then bail on it, they ran out, they tapped out, and they fell out. So you ran out of time. Your day got crazy. Your boss called you in for a last minute all hands meeting and you got home an hour later than you expected. And now you literally don't have time to make dinner. Tapped out. Maybe you just had a day where everything was falling apart and you are more exhausted at the end of the day than you expected to be. So you similarly don't have time to execute on the meal you thought you were going to make or the dinner you thought you were going to eat. And number 3, you fell out of love. So this is where I'm saying, keep a rolling list of things that you see that you're excited to eat, because if you fall out of love with your meals, you won't want to cook them. So in order to deal with all of these 3 situations, if you need to change your meal that night, but you have these ingredients, You follow my ABC method. So you want to have at least 10 meals listed that are ideally pantry meals or things that are in your freezer or things that you just always have in your house. They're very simple, always loved, basic, and convenient. These things mean different. Basic and convenient mean different things to different people. To me, basic might be a soup made in my Instant Pot, and it's still convenient because I work from home, so I can plug it in and let it run for 3 hours. It doesn't really matter that much. But you want to take steps to avoid perishables in these items, and always have something like an ABC meal in my family might be literally a grilled cheese sandwich. So it's something easy that you can just plug in for dinner time without having to reinvent the stress of, oh my gosh, I had a meal plan, I can't cook this meal, now what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? And then importantly, if you had perishables for that meal that you're now bailing on, take steps to preserve those things. If it was salmon, throw it in the freezer. If it was fresh spinach, maybe you want to blanch it and also put that in the freezer. If it was cucumbers, maybe you could put them in a pickle brine so that you aren't letting those things go to waste just because you bailed on your meal plan. And remember, you can always improve. You're already ahead of the game if you're paying attention to what food is getting wasted or not in your house. So if you fall off the wagon and you waste some food, just get back out there and try again the next time you go meal planning, and try to go through the steps again until you feel really confident in them. Thanks very much. I'm going to let Liz wrap it up for the day. And if you have any questions or want to talk about this further, please find me on Instagram or TikTok. My messages are always open. I'd love to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. That was amazing. Okay. I'm going to share my screen once I'm made presenter. Perfect. Okay. Great. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you so much to my fellow speakers. I am learning an incredible amount throughout this conference and during today's panel. I'm very honored to be able to present to all of you. I'll be speaking today on sustainability and the community and how I have found success in spreading a sustainable message, both personally and professionally. For those of you who can't see me today, I am a white woman. I'm wearing a beige turtleneck and yarn earrings. I'm speaking to you from my apartment in Oceanside, California, which is located on Luiseno land. So I know you already got an introduction from Amanda, but just a little bit about me. I did found Start Santosha Nutrition, which focuses on plant-based food services like farm-to-table experiences. In 2021, I co-founded Sustainability is Sexy. And in 2022, I joined the Solana Center for Environmental Innovation as an environmental solutions lead. I'm currently operating and involved with these 3 organizations, in addition to other local sustainable efforts. So what does it mean to be a part of a sustainable community? So we've all heard the phrase, think global, act local. And most likely we've put that into action or practice in our own lives. But it's when we begin to spread these habits through our example through our example and our daily practices and our choices that we have the best chance of becoming a part of and creating a sustainable community. So throughout this conference, you've heard about a circular economy and ways, sorry about that, and ways that you can support a circular economy. So supporting local businesses for good, supporting climate action legislation, these are all ways, really great ways that you can support that circular economy. But it's when we begin to share those and lead by example that we begin to make a difference. Encouraging sustainable practices with friends and family through our community, and supporting sustainable businesses and encouraging our favorite businesses to become more sustainable. So supporting a circular economy with food, our current systemic issues, we're pretty much mostly aware likely of the negative environmental impacts of our current food system. Transportation across continents, deforestation, industrialized animal and plant agriculture, wasted food, emissions, loss of biodiversity, decline of soil health. All of these are staggering and immensely concerning. Not to mention that our current system does not address and increases global food and nutrition insecurity. So what can we do? Supporting a circular food economy begins with these steps. Stop wasting food. This concept is just that simple. Once you make the decision to stop wasting food, it becomes pretty easy to do just that. The idea then begins to trickle down into our other food-related habits like shopping, meal planning, cooking. Allison shared incredible tangible habits for reducing food waste. A few of my favorites include meal planning, bringing your own container to a restaurant to take home your leftovers so you can avoid that disposable, and composting at home. So I could easily talk about this subject solely for more than an hour, but we have a very short time, so let's just hit the basics. Shopping local as a part of your food economy is very important. You're less likely to waste food if you're purchasing it locally. Making relationships at the farmer's market, likely it will have a longer shelf life because it's not traveling from across the world. It's definitely going to taste better, and it will have higher nutrition content because it was able to ripen in your own community. You'll find less plastic when shopping at local markets or farmers markets, and you're lowering those food miles of food transportation. To fight food and nutrition insecurity, you can donate your excess food from home. You can volunteer at local food banks. You can even sponsor a family or just donate money if that's what you're able to do. So supporting a circular economy when it comes to goods, the negative environmental impacts of the current economy are not very different from the negative impacts of that current food system. You have increased emissions, plastic pandemic, corporate monopolization, and the obvious excess waste. All of these are pushing humanity deeper into the climate crisis. This is a big problem, and holding corporations accountable is one of the only true solutions outside of supporting positive legislation. But we can do our best to encourage a circular economy through our choices and by voting with our dollar. So shopping small and shopping local in the same way that supporting a local farmer at the farmer's market supports a local economy, same thing with small business and local business. The easiest practice, and you've heard this before from our other presenters, buy less stuff. This is really good for our wallets, and if it's done on a wide scale, it will then begin to lower the demand for these unnecessary goods and production. Before making a purchase, whether it's impulsive or something you've thought about, do research. Determine, do I really need this? If you do, can I buy it secondhand? Choosing secondhand these days doesn't just mean hitting up the local thrift shop. The secondhand economy is growing, and it needs all of our support to spread. You can look into your local Buy Nothing community for truly transactionless and community-driven commerce. Highly recommend checking that out. And then supporting a circular economy with legislation. Across the country and across the world, individuals and organizations are creating systemic change by introducing climate action legislation. You can stay up to date with what's happening in your own area and get involved. Here in California, it's been amazing to see the impacts that climate-driven laws like SB 1383 are having statewide in regards to food waste reduction, organics recycling, and edible food recovery. These kinds of bills can be found across the country. Zero Waste San Diego provided some really amazing updates on legislation related to right to repair movement earlier on this year, and that really inspired me to learn more about that as well. So encouraging sustainable practices. After you've made these changes or begun to make these changes in your own life, how do you get others on board? I've had really good success and of course some expected roadblocks when talking to friends and family about living more sustainably. And, you know, the easiest way to spread sustainability is to be an example, live your life, practice your habits, and this will often invite questions, sometimes even from strangers. This is a good thing. It means that they are opening the door to the conversation, and that's a really great first step. To me, practical gift giving is twofold, gifting people what they need and in a sustainable way. So zero waste packages, that's something I like to put together. I'll go to my local plastic-free shop or my refillery, put together a small package of plastic alternatives that I think are good introduction products, and then give those as a gift. Experiences and time together, of course, one of the best options all around. And then for me, not adhering to the consumerized pressure in times like the holidays and celebrations. Gift giving can and should be happening when you are inspired to do so and when someone is in need. Sustainable activities. This is a great way I've found of introducing friends and family to sustainable living. It's a really fun way to do it. When I host visitors from out of town or even from in town, I'll include trips to my local farmers market, my local refillery as a part of our activities. It's always fun, and it opens up the door for a lot of questions and opportunity for them to experience the changes. And then most importantly, no judgment. We are in the midst of a climate crisis, so it can be very difficult not to shout our message of sustainability from the rooftops at every passing human. But asking anyone to change their habits when we are being fueled by anger and accusations, it can be a bumpy road. So passionate and realistic positivity can do wonders in helping others to live more sustainably. So as an organization, Sustainability is Sexy has found success in reaching our community with sustainable resources through public events, social media, and our podcast. When we host an event, we do our best to follow a zero waste plan from start to finish. That means ensuring everyone, vendors, venue, attendees are not sending waste to the landfill. So we have no single-use plastic allowed on site, compostable foodwares for our food vendors, organic waste collection for vendors and attendees, plant-based food options, and sustainable partners. So I would recommend beginning to build your own involvement in community impact by joining local groups that are working and nonprofits that are working towards and impacting issues that you care about. So this can be as simple as financial donations or volunteering your time. So businesses, as consumers, we are in the middle of this circular economy cycle. We are purchasing the products being created and have the largest impact on where they are headed in the downstream process, hopefully towards a reuse and recycle economy. For this reason, it's up to us to carefully choose the businesses we support and give them feedback, both positive and critical. Supporting sustainable businesses, researching before you make a purchase, providing feedback, both positive and helpful when you see changes that a business can make, and use and buy less. Support that reuse and repair and secondhand economy. Now, as a business, as a provider, it's our responsibility to do our best to be a part of that circular economy. The world and consumer interests are ever changing. So that means that businesses have to be prepared to evolve and update their own sustainability practices. Accepting critical consumer feedback, although sometimes difficult, is important to financial and environmental success. And finding your community. So CIS is working to create a network of sustainable businesses here in San Diego and inspire change through connection. We've seen many encouraging successes with connecting local businesses to one another. There are many resources for business networks that are centered around impact. So you can find yours or create yours and start benefiting. So key takeaways from this presentation, being a positive part of a sustainable community will look different to different people. Starting simply and being realistic about your time and energy, like with any change, if you go in all at once, that can cause fatigue and is not conducive to success. Doing your best. That's truly all any of us can do. So figure out what your best is right now and continue to grow that over time. Always be learning, read, talk, listen, podcasts, audiobooks, conferences like this one. These are great opportunities to stay up to date with sustainability around the globe. Remember to lead with passion. We're all here because we are interested in finding solutions to the climate crisis. This climate crisis makes me feel things, including anger and fear, and seeking out and listening to these incredible advancements being made in energy technology and resource management, plastic pollution. These encourage me to continue to do my part in a positive way. So thank you so much to Zero Waste USA and my fellow speakers. It brings me so much joy to be here with all of you today and to be learning. My contact information is on this slide if you'd like to take a photo of that. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you to Allison and Adoma and Sarah as well. This has been really a great session. I think that it's really important to talk about zero waste lifestyle because the consumer does have a lot of power and a lot of ability to create change. And we've talked about how zero waste is all about system change, and definitely the consumers and our everyday choices are part of that. So I just want to remind everybody that we should all head back to the main stage by the top of the hour for the sponsor showcase. But we do have a few minutes if you did want to stick around for a couple of questions. And Liz, a couple just came in the chat right at the end. So I don't know if you just want to
Yeah.
answer those or
Yeah,
one of them.
I think I can catch all of them. Do you have talking points to convince restaurants to accept reusable containers? So what I mentioned in my presentation was focused on like bringing a container to have with you to take your leftovers home, because it can be a bit of a roadblock sometimes for restaurants to allow you to use a reusable container for obviously sanitation reasons is the likely reasoning. We here in San Diego are really lucky that some restaurants have takeaway programs with reusable containers, and that's beginning to expand. So I try to talk to restaurants about that and direct them to those types of programs. So searching for something like that and just asking over and over sometimes works as well. I've noticed if I just keep bringing it and explaining that I want to use it and that it's clean, sometimes restaurants will let you use that. But of course, it can be a challenge. But taking it for your own leftovers is great.
That's great.
What tips do you have for how consumers can share constructive feedback to businesses? How do you suggest going about this? Please do not use any platforms like Yelp or anything like those to give critical feedback, as that can incredibly negatively impact a business that you are just trying to help. So I like to try to contact them directly and kind of build a face-to-face or social to social, whether that's Instagram, relationship first. Like, hey, I am a customer of yours. Like, I love your business, your product, and I want to continue supporting you, but I have these concerns. And it may not always be received well, but oftentimes if you open the door first for positive communication and feedback, and then provide some critical feedback, either via social media or even face-to-face at the restaurant, if you're comfortable doing that, is a great way to find more success in them actually implementing some changes.
Great, thank you, Liz. I wanted to ask Allison a question. And Allison, this is something that we talk a lot here in Gainesville, Zero Waste Gainesville, when we do outreach to individuals and families. But can you talk to us briefly about freezing food? So food that's about to go bad, or how freezing kind of puts a pause on freshness. I think that that's a great tip to share with everyone.
A pause. Yeah, that's it. My favorite tip on the freezer is that if your freezer is not a deep freeze, don't think of it as extremely long storage, because even though it's not going to, food from there that's been in there a year is very unlikely to make you sick as long as it's stayed frozen, but the quality will deteriorate and it might pick up smells and things. So I like to counsel people to think of their freezer as a pause, but more short-term storage. So if you have a delicious batch of soup and you portion it into containers and put it in the freezer, put that back on your calendar or back on your meal plan and try to eat it 3 weeks later or 5 weeks later, so that you're actively rotating through what's in your freezer and you aren't just putting things in there to get thrown away. You're not freezing your garbage, basically. And now I've cooked for thousands and thousands of people. I had a restaurant for 10 years. I think, oh, I'm a fancy chef, I'm going to know what that is later. Guess what? Things look different when they're frozen. So always, always, always get blue painter's tape and a Sharpie, and you label it and you put the date on it, and it will really, really help your management. Otherwise, you're going to be defrosting pureed pumpkin and thinking it's canned tomatoes, and then you're going to have to go off on a but so many things can be frozen, like so many things can be frozen. And you can just Google or hit me up for more information. Usually you can take a little bit of a culinary process to maximize it, how it will look when it's defrosted, but it's a great tool that we all have.
Great, thank you. And Adoma and Sarah, would you two like to give some last minute tips or ideas, just something else to wrap up your presentations? We're pretty much done and should all head back to the main room at the top of the hour. And while they're answering this, Liz and Sarah and Allison, if there's anything else you want to put in the chat, resources or other links, go for it. But Adoma and Sarah, any last tips or ideas or anything you want to add?
I can go first. I think a big part of what we're doing now in our campaign is really focusing on alternative gifts, sort of as what Sarah had mentioned beforehand, and just to like share a personal connection. My partner's birthday is coming up, and he's a big fan of like the NBA. And so I got him like Fast Pass and he was really excited for it. And yeah, so just thinking of different ways you can tap into what people are really passionate about, even if they aren't like necessarily material things. And yeah, that's quick, short and quick one.
Yeah, and for me, just to kind of circle back to So Kind, normalizing like asking for what you may want for the holidays. I feel like it's very normal for like kids, but as adults we kind of get away from that. But like instead of viewing it as kind of like bad etiquette, you're taking the stress off people. You're taking the guessing out of it, encouraging to make lists. Yeah, it's ultimately you're simplifying the process and then hopefully getting something that someone's really jazzed about and not gonna like lie. Oh, and normalize regifting. If you get something you don't like, you can regift it in the trash.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank you for this was a great session and y'all's presentations were really fantastic. I know I learned a lot. I want to thank everybody for coming to this session. We had a really great amount of people and I think that they all learned a lot. I'm going to follow you guys on Instagram and LinkedIn if you're there. So I'm really happy to have made these connections with you four as well. So yeah, let's all go back to the main stage and give our sponsors, go back there and look at all of our sponsors and take that in. So thank you all so much. Okay. Yeah, that was really good, you guys. I really appreciate it. I do this stuff day to day in Gainesville and I'm constantly learning new stuff. So I really appreciate it. I thought that this panel was great and lifestyle is sometimes overlooked in the zero waste world professionally because I do consulting and I work in creative reuse and I mean, lifestyle, the day-to-day stuff, it's a sector on their own and consumers need the awareness and education too, just like businesses do. So I really appreciate this. All right, looks like everybody is leaving. I guess I should just end it. So force everybody back to the main stage. Okay. Bye, guys.
Amanda.
Thanks.